Hello, everyone.
How's it going? It's Abdullah Ismail.
I'm very excited to find out about this very exciting product. Never heard of it.
Likewise. We're excited to speak about it.
Welcome, Abdullah, and welcome, Billy Dean.
Billy Dean.
Welcome, High Number. Awesome. For those just joining us, obviously you can see we're a bit low on numbers, so just got to wait for the crowd to pick up a little bit before we kick off.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. We'll just give it a few minutes before the audience arrives. I used to.
Awesome.
Share this on.
Yeah, let's get that up. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, may I just request that we be made host or co-host such that we can share our screens on this side. There we go. Thanks.
Brilliant.
Can you have a bit all?
Some guy. See, Billy Dean's been made co-host as well. Thank you for taking on the responsibility, Billy. I'm dead bad, so dude.
So you start with the audience actually jokes.
Lovely.
Give it another few minutes, I think.
Yeah. Thanks again for those just joining us. We're just waiting for a few more people to join so that we could, kick things off. We understand that some people might be delayed as people might be still moving in or be finishing a class. So if we can all just be patient and bear with them. Constantly, dude.
By the participants, it looks like we have 3 of the UNZABECA students here, well, I assume. So we'll just give it another few minutes. As I mentioned, I think people might be attending class, so we might have to just wait a little bit. I suppose while we wait, I mean, instead of waiting in awkward silence, if anyone has any questions to start off with before we get into the presentation, I think that would be great just to kick the conversation off.
Billy, you look like you had a question. Feel free, you can put it in the chat. You don't necessarily have to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Introduce village banking. That's a very good place to start. Thanks, Kalopa. Appreciate
you might be stealing our flame from the presentation.
The feedback. I mean, I'll touch on it a little bit. It's what is known as village banking. Many refer to it as different things in different countries. It's a very known concept of community banking. Otherwise, people might call it an informal banking scheme because it doesn't necessarily have a formal structure that actually governs it. But so community banking structure that essentially revolves around people saving collectively and using that pool of saving as a means to fund each other's loan books, actually. So the whole concept of it is that its entrusting nature is what makes it actually flourish. So it enables people to be able to have a secure place to keep their savings and then also benefit from accessing cheaper capital from their peers in an environment that they're familiar with, from people that they trust. But again, I will touch on it a little bit more as we go through the conversation, or rather Mikael will once he speaks about the solution itself.
Yeah, I mean, in simple terms, you can view it as a peer-to-peer banking operation where members bank in and amongst themselves as a community.
Yeah. Billy D, with the question, what has been the biggest challenge you've faced so far? And what do you expect to be the biggest challenge moving forward? That's a very, very good question, Billy. And I'd be lying if I told you that I could only tell you about one of the biggest challenges. I don't know if you see the irony in what I said there, but being young entrepreneurs and running a startup that is in an industry, say fintech, that is quite premature, I'd say, in Zambia. We're facing lots of different challenges every day, and sometimes you do find that they do roll onto each other. So in terms of one of the biggest challenges we've actually faced, I think, was pretty much properly getting stuck into R&D, which again is a problem that a challenge that has been lasting since we pretty much conceptualized the idea. In terms of actually getting a team together and actually start developing the actual product from scratch is something that we've never done before. And I think it's been a very, very challenging experience, but an experience nonetheless that we've definitely benefited from. And, the scope of what we're trying to build is very, very far reaching, and hopefully it will have a lot of impact on a lot of people. So for us, we see a lot more bigger challenges coming in the future. But I think given by how we've handled what we've taken on so far, we hope that we'll be able to tackle them with, two hands and make sure that that the result of going through that challenge is actually beneficial for us and for who we hope to be our potential end users.
Yeah, and also just to add to that, on top of obviously the very sort of gray area within the regulatory framework in Zambia for fintechs trying to innovate, I would say just trying to manage a remote team in the midst of obviously a pandemic, that's had its own challenges. And obviously that compounds on top of us being young entrepreneurs and trying to just do the best we can. So yeah, managing a team, a technical team and a business development team remotely has been quite challenging.
Indeed. I think we're going to give it a couple more minutes before we actually start. I believe it's being recorded as well. So hopefully for those that do miss it, we will be able to share this webinar with those that might be interested. If you do have friends that might be or should be joining, we'd appreciate it if you just give them a bit of a nudge. We understand that it is an evening and people do like to have time to themselves in the evening. So we'll try not to keep you here for too long, but also we want it to be as engaging as possible. So we won't necessarily put a limit on it. Abdullah with a question. What is your vision for COMGROW and how do you see it bringing value to the Zambian population? That is a very, very good question, Abdullah, and I might have to refrain from answering that just in case there are people who will be coming in soon, because that is pretty much part of the introduction in terms of what COMGROW's vision is, and linked to obviously where we started, where the idea stemmed from. And in terms of bringing back value to the Zambian population, I will touch on that in my introduction, if you wouldn't mind bearing with me there. Yeah,
as you mentioned, Carl, I think people do have class right now, but if there are any willing participants who aren't here, if you could please just nudge them, that would be great.
Yeah, we believe we have a lot of insightful stuff to share with you, and we actually set up this webinar because we wanted to be as interactive as possible. So we appreciate, even before we started, that you've put comments in, put questions, as is it something that we really want to be as engaging as possible, because for us, this being our first virtual event, I think it'd be really, really good if whilst we are telling our story and getting to the crux of what we actually want this presentation to be about, to get as much feedback from you as we go along. So I will repeat it just in case there are a few more people that come in, but please, if you do have any comments, questions, either raise your hand if you'd like to speak, otherwise please pop the question on the group and we'll try and answer them as we go along. Yeah, just a couple more minutes, I think. Mikael said he was eager to tell everyone a joke at the waiting room. So,
I think that in and of itself is a joke.
No, okay, we'll leave it to
the jokes till the end. Someone in the waiting room. Awesome.
Down the tab.
Where is the
what are you trying to do?
I'm trying to see the waiting room.
I consider some questions in the chat. Look at them.
Yes, John, go ahead. John, can you hear us?
Yes, I can say.
I don't know if you had a question there, John.
I think there are some questions in the chat.
Yeah, we
answer them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think or we can just check it again.
Chat.
I think we might have answered all those questions already. But don't worry, John, if you did miss them, we will be answering them again whilst we do go through our presentation. What are you trying to do?
The waiting room.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
Start 20 past.
Yeah, I think let's give it 2 more minutes and then we'll kick off.
Yeah.
Anyone that joins along the lines, well, during the call, we'll just maybe give them updates and probably answer their questions.
Wow. Could do email addresses. Take that text off, dude. Damn, it's getting me. Cool. Yeah, I think it's chill to just leave it like that.
Yeah.
See everyone. Abdullah with a question there. How large is the team at COMGROW at the moment? Yeah, so we've basically, like I said, we're still a very early stage. We've tried to, get as many necessary people on our team in terms of splitting it between business development, which is more the unit that I run, and then the technical development unit, which is Mikael's forte. And Mikael will talk to you a little about his team, but on my team, I'm a one-man team at the moment. I'm not sure if you do follow us on our socials. I will preface that again. It's COMGROW.zm on Instagram, COMGROW Zambia on LinkedIn, and you can follow us as COMGROW_ZM on Twitter. But we actually did just open an application for our analyst positions, which would be in the sales and marketing division underneath the business development unit. And we're looking to get a team of about 4 to 6 under there. So I think combined with Mikael's team of 8, which he'll talk to you a bit more about, we're looking at having a team of about 14, which some would say is quite large for an early stage startup. But like we said, we're trying to get the best as possible in early stage to make sure that we deliver the sophisticated solution as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from a a technical perspective, which is where I kind of sit. Obviously, bringing the solution itself to market is something that has been challenging in and of itself, and it's a huge effort, especially for an inexperienced team. So talent with regards to development and just initiative with regards to technical innovation is really, really important at this point. And we have an amazing team. They're quite young, but have a lot of initiative and a lot of sort of innovative ideas. So we definitely see this team growing as the company grows, which is fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant. I think, we did say we were going to start at 20 past, so I think now would be a good time to get the ball rolling. Just to make sure you can all see the screen being shared. A few thumbs up or raised hands would be brilliant there, or someone to comment saying that it's showing. But I hope you can see myself and Mikael clearly. I hope you can hear us clearly as well. And I think very warm welcome to you all. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. A big thank you to Volvo Listing for hosting us on this webinar. And thank you to UNZABECA as well, who were our main audience for this webinar. I hope there are a few faces in there. I know I can see a few foreign faces. Very happy to have you all here. But a big thank you to UNZABECA, and in her absence, Rhoda Kakoma and Kalopa, who is here, for helping us set this up. We've been working on COMGROW for a few years now, since 2017. And we're very, very excited to get to the stage that we're at now and be able to have events like this and actually share to you, where we've come from, what our solution's about, and where we plan to go with it, really. So I think to kick off, my name is Mkuzo Kuwani. I'm the CEO of COMGROW. This is Mikael Maingard, my co-founder and CTO. And just get right into it, I guess. So I've always had an interest in banking and finance. And I think, between my years between leaving high school and actually going to university, I developed that interest in banking finance and actually called on Mikael to do a bit of research with me on the financial landscape that existed in Zambia. And, having done quite a bit of research, there was quite a lot of statistics that stood out to us as quite pressing, that needed addressing per se. And, the outline of the problem that we conceptualized and actually used to start the idea of actually developing COMGROW, the problem was actually twofold. So on the one hand, we were looking at what it looked like, what the financial market looked like from a credit perspective. And, we found that in Africa in general, interest rates for personal lending rates and SME lending rates were quite high, but within the SADC region in particular, especially in Zambia, having the second highest of both rates, averaging about 27% for personal lending rates and 32% for SME lending rates. It was quite a shock to see that a country that had been elevated to middle income status had such unrealistically high lending rates. And what we found is, when we did a bit more research into what the credit landscape looked like here, there was still, although these interest rates were quite high, there was still quite a high dependence on borrowing by a lot of Zambians. And as you can imagine, if you have a high dependence on borrowing and you're borrowing at such high rates, it's very, very easy to fall into a unsustainable cycle of bad credit. And this would obviously mean that you're defaulting your loans and trying to take out more loans to cover previous loans. So, that was the overview of the problem that we saw from the credit side. And that was for people that were mainly integrated into the formal financial landscape. But, we kind of took the research a bit further and tried to look at what people did to access finance or people who couldn't afford these high interest rates, what they would do and what they would resort to find capital that they could access. And this is where we kind of came across the concept of village banking, which, as I mentioned earlier, for those of you who didn't know, it's a community banking scheme, which it's kind of in the name in terms of village banking, where you would be with members in your community and saving collectively, and then being able to access the capital that everyone has put together to fund whatever it is you needed funding. So on that side, we see that there's a huge gap in the market in terms of the rate of financial inclusion. And again, this is quite a depressing statistic to read, that only a third of the country had access to formal financial services, leaving 2/3 without. And this is exactly why they resorted to these community banking schemes, because it was all they could use to make ends meet. And so in looking at trying to address financial inclusion, we started looking at why has village banking been so successful amongst the people that haven't been integrated into the formal financial system? And you know, it was quite, again, shocking for us to realize that the lucrative concepts of the lucrative principles that are actually part of village banking and like actually rest at its core. And you know, for us, we decided to embark on a journey to actually prove the concept ourselves. And you know, we set up our own group and saw firsthand the benefits of such a community banking system. And for us, we also saw there was quite a few issues that needed to be addressed. And again, Mikael will go into what the details of our solution are. But essentially, what we're trying to achieve with our solution is that, what we're trying to achieve with our solution is to address those two issues that I mentioned to you earlier. And this is what Goal 1 talks about, being able to access secure and affordable credit. Again, with those stats that prevail in the Zambian market, it's definitely something that we could use our solution, being leveraging technology to make village banking a more secure, efficient, and enriching experience for all of those that use it. You know, we see a huge benefit to being able to leverage the technology to actually provide a solution that is obviously better for all, and also allows people to access this secure and affordable credit, be those that are already integrated in the formal financial system or those that aren't necessarily, and it kind of acts as a gateway to allow them to be integrated into this formal financial system. And again, Goal 2 feeds on Goal 1 in the sense that if you can allow people access to affordable credit, you know, it kind of reduces the risk of default, because you know, people aren't necessarily borrowing at such high rates. And from our perspective, the way the application would work in terms of being able to harness the data, again, alluding to leveraging technology to enhance the core principles of what village banking does. And finally, the third goal, again, talking about financial inclusion. And I think to go back to your question earlier, Abdullah, in terms of what impact we think it can have on the Zambian community and the Zambian population, I think this is probably one of the biggest issues that we're trying to address in terms of what our vision is for the Zambian population, what we plan to achieve with COMGROW. For us, we obviously bring up a technological solution, but our end goal is to see a more financially inclusive Zambia, because you see the benefit of, you understand how important a country's financial system is to the success of its economy, of its population, and pretty much all the systems that they have in place. And for us, if we can make a difference by leveraging something that is a lot more popular than people think, to improve the financial inclusivity of the population, that's definitely somewhere we see ourselves going, and we'll do our best by all means to implement that. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much what our story is. And I'll now pass on to Mikael, who will give you a bit more detail whilst explaining what village banking is about, and about our solution.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Mkuzo, for covering all of the serious stuff. Fortunately, I get to cover all of the fun stuff. So awesome. So as mentioned, and for those of you who have just joined, my name is Mikael Maingard. I'm co-founder and CTO at COMGROW, and currently leading up the technical development team that is building the application that we hope to bring to market. So obviously a very exciting journey. So just want to go through some of the features of the application that we're building and draw comparisons to traditional practices of village banking to obviously draw that comparison. Awesome. So in traditional practice of village banking, which I'm sure some of you may know in the participants, this may look like on a monthly basis, members meeting at a physical location and bringing wads of cash to the meetings and saving into their central village banking fund, which may be a shoebox or an account held in someone's name. But all in all, you can see the problems involved with this process. Number one, on the security side, and number two, on, of course, the efficiency side and the problems with administration and trying to coordinate all of these efforts at physical meetings. So this is something we've completely streamlined in our application with our in-app transactions, enabling people to save whenever they please during the month, and save in increments or in lump sum amounts directly on the application. So it's as simple as going onto the platform, typing out an amount they'd like to save, choosing their preferred payment method, whether that be mobile money, which is obviously very prevalent in Zambia, or a credit or debit card. So typing out an amount they'd like to save, proceeding to check out with their payment details, and seeing their money go from their linked wallet or bank account into their central village banking fund, which is held in a secure financial institution in the background, which of course solves that issue of security as well. So one of the main benefits of village banking, as Mkuzo mentioned, is that members can access affordable credit out against the savings within the group itself. Again, this is a physical process at during practicing offline village banking. So this typically looks like members deliberating at physical meetings, trying to decide who can access what in capital and how long that capital is loaned out for. You can imagine, obviously, tensions are high at these meetings and efficiency is very low. So this, again, is a process we've streamlined and enabled and simplified with our in-app transactions. So members simply go onto the platform, enter their loan application there by typing out an amount they'd like to loan and the duration they'd like to access that loan for, and then submit their loan application there. This will then go and filter through and pass through loan validations that are part of our village banking algorithms in the back end. And once validated, that amount is simply wired into their chosen wallet or bank account so that they can use it for their intended purpose. And this is an instantaneous payout. So again, you don't have to worry about going to a physical meeting and waiting for cash to be handed to you. And one of another really great benefit to village banking in general is this inherent growth mechanism at the core, which is basically the circulation of funds from savings being dispersed into loans, and then the loans being repaid with interest. And this is something that we've made obviously a core of our application and promoted as much as possible with the algorithms that we have in place, such that members benefit from a growth mechanism that is, of course, inclusive, and they can watch their money grow on a month-to-month basis directly on the platform. Now, one of the major problems with, sorry, let me just let these people in. One of the major problems with traditional practices of village banking is that it's incredibly difficult to keep track of the transactions that go on a month-to-month basis. You can imagine trying to coordinate and account for all of these transactions with groups ranging from 30 members to upwards, and trying to record savings, loans, repayments, all of this sort of stuff in a book or an Excel spreadsheet, and trying to reconcile these amounts on a monthly basis is incredibly difficult. So that's a huge administrative task that we said we have to absolutely do away with. So all of our transactions in the application are recorded and accounted for automatically. And then this data is then processed and given back to the users in the form of detailed financial reports, which they can access at any point in time. And this is really important. Obviously, dealing in the financial realm, you always want complete financial transparency. So we thought this was really important. It's really important to know exactly how you stand from a financial standpoint in your group at any point in time. Just before I go on, I want to emphasize again, reiterate that we want to make this an interactive process. So if you do have any questions that come up, please feel free to drop a comment in the chat or raise your hand, just unmute yourself and ask a question.
And also, if you don't understand anything Mikael is talking about, because he can get a bit technical sometimes, please feel free to shout at him and tell him to explain it in layman's terms for the rest of us anyway. But yeah, I think you can carry on now.
Awesome. Cool. So just in summary, with regards to the application, the benefits that a member joining our app would obviously benefit from are, number one, automated record keeping, with members no longer having, oh, sorry, I'm going to stop here. We have a question.
Hello, I have a question. My name is Collins.
Hi, Collins. Thanks. Please go ahead.
Is the app on Google Play?
The app is cross-platform on Google Play and on the Apple Store. So Well, not currently, but when I get to my next slide, I'll chat further about that.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so it is cross-platform, available on Android devices and iOS. So yeah, that's the target that we've initially gone for. Awesome. So let me get back into it. So the benefits of the application, number one, is the automated record keeping, such that any member within the group no longer has to worry about the arduous processes involved with keeping track of the transactions that go on a month-to-month basis, and having access to, of course, those detailed financial reports, which give them complete financial transparency with regards to their financial standing in the group. Secondly, the safeguarding of funds, and this is twofold. Number one, with funds being held in a secure financial institution in the background, and no one person having access to those funds and running away with those at any point in time, as we've seen in many accounts of fraudulent practices of village banking in Zambia and other African countries. So the safeguarding of funds in that sense. And secondly, obviously the benefit of the algorithms that we have in place and the data that we can harness to drive down the risk of default associated with any loan that's taken out on our platform. And then, of course, quite an obvious one is the ease of movement of money, with our in-app transactions enabling members to save, repay, take loans, and get payouts at any point in time directly on the application by using their mobile money wallets, their debit and credit cards, or any linked bank account. And then something inherent to village banking is access to competitive monetary rates. On the savings side, where you benefit from having access to the circulation of funds and this inherent growth mechanism, and of course, access to affordable credit. And this is something that, of course, we try to promote as much as possible on our application. And then a feature that I want to chat about briefly is something that we want to bring in into the medium and long term on our app, is access to investment opportunities on the platform. And this is something that's in line with the vision that we have for what COMGROW is going to do in Zambia and other African countries, is to promote responsible lending and to promote saving. So one of the problems and you'll see this in traditional practices of village banking, is this excessive promotion of lending in order to increase the circulation of funds, in order to inflate growth on savings. So this is obviously unsustainable. You would have heard of forced loans in village banking operations, and this is something that we completely want to shy away from and bring in and incorporate other investment opportunities on the platform to give the members access to other forms of growth for their savings, such that they don't have to perpetuate these cycles of credit.
Yeah, there are a good number of messages here in this one I'm looking for, but I can't see.
So, cool. And yeah, this brings us to the crux of this webinar, which is promoting our early access program. And Collins, this is where I'll chat a little bit about access to the application. And yeah, so the early access program is a program that we have put in place to get early adopters onto our app, and testing the features that we've incorporated and giving us feedback in order for the technical development team to improve the application from a feature perspective, increasing the good features, the features that end users want to see on the application, and removing those features that you may see as redundant. And of course, the business development team working closely with us with regards to how to best bring the solution to market and make it as beneficial for the end user as possible. So launching on the 20th of September, just in 2 weeks now, we'll be launching the early access program, which will span for a period of 8 weeks. And everyone enlisted will have access to the application, whether it be on an Android device or an iOS device. You will go through a period of testing where we will ask for your feedback, and then we will relay to you updates on the application as per your feedback, which is a fantastic opportunity as a potential end user to make an impact on a piece of technology that will hopefully be quite beneficial on the Zambian market. We have a question here from Kalopa, will it be free? So if you can just tell me if you're referring to the full release or the early access program. I'll assume you meant early access program, which is completely free. You're exactly right. So the early access program you'll be testing out a specific version of the application. Yeah, okay, so you just clarified it's the early access program. So it will be free. You'll be testing out a specific version of the application, which will include you transacting virtually. So you won't have to worry. I mean, if you did have any worries about moving capital around, it will be transacting virtually and you won't incur any costs. So yeah, this is really just to promote this feedback loop of the end user testing the application, giving us feedback, us as a technical development team and a business development team, using your feedback to improve our solution and product offering, and then launching updates and getting feedback and continuing this loop.
Yeah, I think if I can just add there, I think one of the things I wanted to talk about earlier in terms of how we operate as a company, we're very much people over process, and that's internally and externally. You know, from the inside, it takes a team to do what it is that we're doing, and we've got to make sure that the people are prioritized over the process, and it works from the other end as well, in terms of why we want to run this early access program, in the sense that there's no point in our spending all this time and all these resources in building a solution which we think will be great, but as potential end users, your feedback is the most critical thing that will actually make or break the solution being used for its intended use. And yeah, we just wanted to reiterate that this is more so that we can engage you as a potential end user to be a very, very strong part of the development of the application. And I know Mikael said it would be completely free, but it will cost you your time, only your time. As an economist, I'm pretty sure you know that nothing in this world is free. But yeah, other than your time, it won't cost you anything. And as you can see on the slide, how the program will run, and the benefits of being able to be part of something like this in terms of the feedback that you'd be offering, and obviously the benefits of being enlisted as an early stage user and earning sign up and startup bonuses. But again, that's something that will be coming as the program's concluding. And once we do send the link to you to get you to sign up, we must preface that with the fact that we are hosting this webinar on courtesy of what we're listing, obviously, to the UNZABECA audience. Collins, I have seen your question. I will allow you to ask it in a second. But yeah, I do see a few faces that are not necessarily part of the UNZABECA society, nor in Zambia, but yeah, we do want to just reiterate that this is targeted towards an UNZABECA audience, but we do obviously appreciate everyone being here, and we do appreciate the engagement that you've had. Collins, I'm just going to unmute you, or ask to unmute you so that you can ask your question.
Okay, my question is from a technical point of view. What programming languages were involved in creating this software or program?
If I can send you an NDA quickly and you can sign it, I think I can tell you what our text is.
On an overview basis.
Yeah, overview basis. So are you talking on the mobile side or back end side?
Both.
Okay. Yeah, so we're using cross-platform technology on the mobile side. So technology, I'm not sure how technical I should go. Are you familiar with technical jargon?
This is what I told you. You've got to be careful the way you're asking these questions.
Yeah, on a technical note, I just wanted to know what programming languages were being used.
Yeah.
And how secure is your system from hackers?
Yeah.
And yeah, we're using Java because this is a financial app, or what else was involved?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose there's no harm in telling 11 participants. So we're using React Native on the front end, on the mobile side, because of obviously the benefit of it being cross-platform and not having to maintain two different code bases on the front end. And then we're using Python in the back end, of course, being one of the fastest growing and supported languages, and obviously being very secure. and supported within the financial industry. And then, of course, being a data-driven company, all stuff is in partnership with a cloud-based platform, which, of course, you, if you do know, is very secure.
Yeah, and I think just, I don't know, not necessarily from a technical perspective, but in terms of safety and security, I know we have touched on quite a bit how we're implementing the solution to kind of improve on the security aspects of village banking. And in terms of alluding to what Mikael mentioned earlier, in terms of there being, instances of fraud with people trying to bring up village banking applications, we have taken this very, very seriously, and this is another reason that we wanted to embark on developing such a solution, because we understand the security is of paramount importance. And in terms of our endorsements, we're not necessarily at liberty to expose those until we actually have a live application out in the market. But rest assured, I'm assuming that you are part of the UNZABECA society. If you did join the program, then you would see, you'd have direct access to actually viewing what kind of things are in place in that sense, in terms of endorsements by regulators, by our partnering institutions as well. But rest assured, that once we do go live, all of that information is publicly available. We're just unable to necessarily expose too much about that at the moment.
Yeah, I hope that's okay.
Yeah,
that answers your question, Collins.
Yeah, thank you so much.
no worries.
Okay, cool.
But yeah,
Any other questions before we move along?
right. I think we can move it along a little bit.
Yeah.
Whilst Mikael gets this link up again, if you are just joining us, thank you for joining us. I hope that we've been quite elaborate with the information that we've given today in terms of where we've come from and where we're going. And I think just to give a bit of an overview as to what it is that we're trying to do in a nutshell at COMGROW, we've pretty much seen that there's an opportunity for something that exists on a very, very large scale in a very, let's say, informal sense to be improved massively, and is not just going to benefit those that already use the kind of system of village banking, but also be beneficial for those who are foreign to it. And again, our ethos is based on promoting collective saving, that you should be saving as often as you can, responsible lending, and obviously that with the end goal of being able to increase financial inclusivity in the formal financial landscape. And I think for us, using village banking as a vehicle to do this, we must stress that for those of you who are familiar with village banking, it is a very, very well-known concept. Again, it's got its own names in different countries, but in Zambia alone, there's, I think, over $50 million that's transacted annually in traditional savings. And this is, all sorts of other different community banking groups that engage in this. And I think in across Africa and Europe and the Middle East, I think there's $100 billion a year that's actually transacted. And you can imagine the scale and the opportunity for this is immense. And for us, we must stress that because it's such a popular thing and has existed for so many years and is already successful, in no way are we trying to bring something and take village banking and change it into something new. For us, it's about building on what exists and just making it, like we've mentioned, more secure, more efficient, and hopefully more enriching.
Yeah, and accessible.
And accessible for those that do use it.
Thank you, Francis. That's very kind of you. Really appreciate the support. Yeah, but moving along, I think we can open up the floor to giving access to the early access program. So just to stress, I know that not many, well, many of the participants weren't really able to join due to a class that is happening concurrently, but we are going to post a link that we'd love for you to fill out if any of this did tickle a fancy. So if you are keen on using an early stage application in the up and coming fintech market in Zambia and providing feedback throughout your testing and being involved in the development process, I think please just enter in your information there and do share it with your friends at UNZABECA. I know some of them who would maybe have liked to join weren't able to make it. So please do copy this link and send it over to your friends. We will be taking the first 20 signups on this link, and we'll be in touch via WhatsApp as soon as we've concluded that list. Yeah, so really excited about this program, really excited to get feedback from you guys as potential end users, and obviously young and exciting people with a lot of ideas. We really are looking forward to seeing your ideas, getting your feedback, and hopefully improving our offering to the public in Zambia.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Mikael's hit the nail on the head there in terms of trying to invite you guys to join this program. Again, like I mentioned, it is something that we feel is very, very important to gain feedback from what would be a potential end user, because like we said, we don't want to put something out into the market with all this hope and put all these resources and time into developing something that won't serve its intended purpose. And it's critical that we do engage with the general public, even in these early stages of development, to actually make sure that the kind of stuff that we are developing is suitable for the target audience. And yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. If there are any more questions, if you don't like the look of my shirt, or you'd like to say something about Mikael's technical jargon, please do jump in. We would like to open the floor to any kind of discussions, any kind of questions you have about COMGROW, about us, about our team, anything really. We'd like to make this as engaging as possible and get any kind of feedback from you.
And thank you very much for those of you who have already signed up. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And we look forward to working with you. So you're definitely in the program.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, Collins, go ahead.
So my question is, as a business, do you intend on putting your company shares on the stock exchange? Anything to do with that? Let's say the business is doing well and business is booming.
I think for us, the first goal before we even think about listing ourselves on the stock exchange is to actually integrate with the Lusaka Stock Exchange app, so we can actually give those who are part of our village banking groups the opportunity to invest excess funds, as Mikael mentioned. But yeah, I mean, I suppose you're alluding to what our exit strategy is. And again, for us, that's not necessarily something we've put any thought to. I think Mikael and I are both aligned in the sense that we've, really, really put a lot of hard work and time into developing the solution. And, for us, it's more about making sure that we actually achieve what we have set out as our mandate in terms of, actually driving down interest rates and actually improving financial inclusion. So for us, obviously, as a startup and trying to tackle a major issue, there has been a lot of conversations we've had about what our exit strategy would be, but I'm sure Mikael will agree with me. That's not necessarily a focus of us, especially in this early stage. We've definitely got a long way to go, a lot to build, or more so him than me. Yeah, it's not something that we would rule out, but it's not necessarily something that we've put a lot of thought into, especially at this early stage.
It's a good question, Francis. What has been the biggest challenge in your journey?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Francis. And it actually was asked earlier, but I'm happy to talk about it again, because like I mentioned, for us being young entrepreneurs in a startup with a focus on an industry that is very, what I would say, premature in Zambia, it comes with a lot of challenges every day, and a lot of them do roll onto each other. And for us, it's more about actually facing adversity head on, like any entrepreneurial startup would face. I think I can't remember who mentioned the quote, but it's something about, if you're looking for words of encouragement, don't become an entrepreneur, because I mean, that's the biggest challenge that we face every day, is actually realizing that, we've got a long way to build a solution that has to make a lot of impact. I would steal Mikael's thunder, even though he did make a good point about remote working. But yeah, I mean, Francis, they do come and go in terms of how we had to operate as a team, conceptualizing the idea. Actually, from the get-go, we were two boys fresh out of university, had the idea to build an app, as you do. And for us, we had absolutely no idea where we were going. And it took a lot of long hours doing research and trying to gather a team and put our working processes together to actually start some proper technical development. And Mikael will chat a bit more about how that's been, because he does head the technical unit. But yeah, I could go on about this for ages, but I'll let Mikael chat a bit about it as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that adversity, especially as an early stage entrepreneur, and also within fintech, is one of the biggest challenges. And this is something, you have no idea what adversity you will face. You may expect something and get something completely different. So it's just going into any day with the mentality that regardless of what comes at you, you are just going to knuckle down and go through it. So it's just this having a fundamental belief in yourself that you can solve anything that comes along your path, I think is really important. But yeah, I mean, me personally, definitely would be adversity. I don't know if you were here earlier when Mkuzo mentioned that we essentially started on this idea back in 2017 when we were both studying. And I've known for quite some time now that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And finishing up my studies last year, I knew exactly that I was going to come and put my all into COMGROW. So I left my family behind, left everyone behind basically, and moved to Zambia whilst Mkuzo was still in the UK. So, arriving in Zambia, not really having anyone around me who I knew, and building a startup from scratch was an incredibly daunting task. And I did, have gone through some adversity there, but this is do want to take adversity head on in each point in my life. So I would say that's been the biggest challenge, but also the biggest blessing, because adversity makes you into a better person if you come through the other side. But other than that, I'm mainly working on the technical side of things. It's been fantastic to learn, how to manage a technical team and build a technical team. Really been blessed to have found some incredible characters from the get-go, who I would 100% say that we wouldn't be where we are today without certain key team members. So yeah, very blessed in that sense, and just it's also been challenging to manage that remotely, but yeah, been a great experience so far.
Awesome. I don't know if there are any other questions or comments. Oh, right, okay. Abdullah's put a question in there. What is the core of your company that makes what COMGROW is doing very difficult for a competitor to duplicate? In other words, what makes your company stand out?
Yeah, great question.
That is a brilliant question, Abdullah. And you've actually taken us more to the investor pitching side of what Mikael and I usually do in front of a screen of people. Our competitive advantage lies pretty much within what Mikael spoke about and what I touched on just before he did that, in terms of our wanting to make an end-to-end platform for village banking. And again, in terms of the other applications that do exist, if you look at the way our application will compare to theirs, obviously we're all pretty much data-driven applications, so we will have the financial record keeping and management side of it. But I think our key difference is that we're actually an end-to-end platform, being that we actually have transactions on our we will have transactions on our platform, meaning that you won't have to worry about the admin or burden of having to draw up a scheduling, a transfer schedule of people's money from account to account, or have to deal with wads of cash like Mikael was talking about in terms of managing the funds. And then another good part of what we're doing and what makes us stand out in terms of having a competitive advantage is that on the technology side, it's a useful tool. I don't necessarily have a technological background, but we're working very closely with Mikael and his team. I've seen, the kind of avenues and benefits, the kind of benefits it has, and the kind of avenues it opens up to bring more opportunity out of a traditional concept such as village banking. And what I'm alluding to here is, harnessing the data that we can process on our application to drive down the risk of default, which is definitely something that does not, well, to our knowledge anyway, does not exist on any other village banking or fintech platform per se that exists in the Zambian market. In terms of ability to duplicate it, I think this is something that we had to get past from quite an early stage in terms of not wanting to share our ideas because we'd be scared that one of the big institutions or someone who had a bit more resource backing than we did would come up and take it. But I think we've proven ourselves having been, in serious research and development from about June 2020. And for us, it's, we're very, very set in our ways. We've got a very unique working process. And I think I'm a strong believer of, we have an idea and we've been passionate about this for the last 4 years, since day one. And, for us, we know what our core purpose is. And currently, I don't think there's any other player, especially in the Zambian market, that would come anywhere near trying to deliver the core purpose that we have. And on top of that, having the passion to actually deliver on building an idea and actually implementing the solution, I think is something that we have as a good backup for us in terms of having our mindset actually being focused on not necessarily discounting who would be our competitors, but rather just making sure that we focus on what it is that we're doing and trying to deliver it to the best of our ability.
Yeah, I would just add to that by saying the fact that we're an end-to-end platform enables us to incorporate other benefits that our competitors may not be able to do. Because we deal within the financial realm and we deal with the movement of capital, we can then harness our leverage as a company structure to bring in additional benefits to the application that members can access on a monetary basis on the application. So I would say the end-to-end, the fact that we're an end-to-end solution from the get-go is a benefit, but it's twofold because that compounds into bringing other solutions that can tap into that system itself down the line.
Yeah.
And then I would also just agree with you by saying we have such an innovative team at COMGROW who is committed to bringing new ideas to the table, who's passionate about improving village banking for the people, not necessarily just doing it to be better than the competitor. It's a team that puts themselves in the shoes of the end user and says, what do I want? What would I want? What can I incorporate? Not what is easy to incorporate or what is possible at this point. It's like just pushing the boundaries to bring the benefits to the application to make it as beneficial for the end user.
Yeah. I just see another question there. Thanks, Abdullah. Have you had other pilot projects, and if yes, what sort of results did you get from these? That's a very good question, actually. And yeah, I think Mikael and I have a good story about this, considering that's pretty much what kind of led us to actually wanting to develop a technical solution, apart from the fact that we wanted to, fix those issues that we spoke about from the beginning. But yeah, I mean, I suppose our first pilot project was pretty much just proving village banking as a concept for ourselves. So, we actually set up a village banking group of our own. So we set up a village banking group of our own just by inviting family and friends. And, we did all the things in the traditional sense, in the sense that we wrote up a constitution, elected an executive committee, set our meeting dates and, our transaction thresholds, and we would actually meet on a monthly basis to transact. And again, this is at least one of the difficulties that we've had or challenges that we faced in implementing the solution, is that when we actually were running these pilot cycles, Mikael was in South Africa and I was at university in the UK. So, from a very, very early stage, we were, kind of managing a village banking group remotely. Karen, I have seen your questions, and I will get to those after this. But yeah, I mean, for us, it was quite interesting to see, because we sat into a village banking group before that and kind of mimicked their operation with a group of people for ourselves. And safe to say that it was actually a lot more successful than we thought. And this is when we started figuring out that there were these huge benefits to having systems like this. And, thankfully I had someone like Mikael to work with as well, because he did a very, very good job in helping us develop processes, especially on the accounting side of it, that would allow us to make sure that our pilot cycle was as streamlined and efficient as possible. But I mean, over our first cycle, we managed to raise an astounding $25,000 in collective savings and interest. And this was purely from people saving money and actually borrowing from those funds and repaying it with interest. And, again, like Mikael was alluding to earlier, in terms of not wanting to have, trying to be innovative and finding ways that we could make the money grow more productively rather than having to impose forced loans on people that were in the pilot cycle. Safe to say, our rate, and this is again something that was really striking to us in the sense that we had a flat lending rate of 10% for on the principal value of your loan, and obviously this would depend on how long you would take to repay it. But we ended up checking what the average interest earned on your savings was. So when we got to payout day and we see how much more people earned, how much more people were taking home on top of their savings, it turned out to be an astounding 29%. And if you look at any other money market instrument that exists in Zambia, this was, I think double the highest, which was playing about 14-15%. So, although it was a very controlled sample of 24 people and only one group itself, these kind of things actually showed us that there's definitely a lot of benefit to, carrying on with processes like these. And our second cycle was actually disrupted by COVID because, we were relying on having to meet on a physical basis. And, on the one hand, having received overwhelming feedback from the way our group performed and, wanting to take on more groups and wanting to manage them, we realized that there was definitely an opportunity to implement a better way of running the village banks, especially for we who were running it remotely. And on the other hand, there's no way that we could have, made so much progress with a solution that was so beneficial for people that were using it, and then just let a pandemic stop it. And so I think combining those two ideas, it kind of screamed at us that we needed to somehow use technology to leverage technology to actually make sure we could improve the village banking processes and how it existed. And that's pretty much how our first pilot projects went. And that's pretty much how it also spurred us on to getting to making a technical solution for it.
Awesome. Yeah, Karen, thank you so much for the question. So Karen asked, how do we know our money is safe in our hands? So number one, being regulated by the Bank of Zambia is one indication. Obviously, we have to comply with a bunch of regulations set out by their directives. And number two is that we're partnered with a bank in the background. So your money is not held by us. It's held in a secure banking institution in the background where no individual has access to your funds. So that's held securely and are then dispersed and collected by our payments partners, who are again, trusted institutions and duly registered. Cool. If that answers your question, I'll go to the next one. Otherwise, just let me know. Cool. Chitty, you've asked, I may have missed this, but will I be able to connect my local and American bank to the app? So you definitely will be able to connect your local bank. With regards to an American bank, it may depend on what transaction you're trying to process. If you're using an American credit or debit card, that is possible. But I can tell you 100% that you'll be able to connect your local bank to the app. Awesome. Mutale, how confident are you that the initial adoption of the application will be positive as you're working in a market that is so heavily dominated by USSD codes opposed to using applications? That's a really good question, Mutale. Thanks for asking that. And this again touches on our essentially pre-pilot phase when we facilitated a village banking operation for it was really like middle to higher income only groups, and that opened our eyes to the market that really practices village banking. It's not only those in lower income groups who would be more akin to using the USSD. It's also, a large percentage of village bankers are those in corporate offices, in middle to higher income earning groups who do use smartphone technology on a day-to-day basis. So you've raised a really great point there. I would say the initial, if it's not initially adopted well, as I mentioned before, this is just a piece of adversity that we will tackle as entrepreneurs. We're going to be relentless in our approach to this. we have a mission of improving the landscape in Zambia of financial inclusion and bringing value to village bankers in Zambia. So if it initially doesn't get adopted well, that's just something that we'll have to take back to the drawing board.
But I think Mikael did also, he makes a great point there in terms of how, this is a solution that we want to make sure will improve village banking for all. And Matala, you're very, very right in saying that, we're a market that's heavily dominated by USSD codes, opposed to using mobile applications. And this is in no way us, our delivering the application firstly by a mobile application, in no way us discounting the benefit of looking into actually delivering it via USSD codes. I mean, if that were the case, then we wouldn't be addressing the issue of such low rates of financial inclusivity, because you can understand that most of the people that are financially excluded will probably be those that are using USSD codes to bank. So it's not to say that there's no scope for that at all. It's just the way we approach going to market, we see this target market as the easiest way to actually get into it, because also we're not necessarily dealing at the larger scale that we would be. And we know that if we do ever venture down delivering our solution via USSD, it would be to a very, very, very large market. And that would also require us to be a lot more further down the line in terms of our technical development, in terms of the sophistication of our technology. Ironically, I know some may think that USSD codes are primitive form of technology, but I think Mikael will be able to elaborate on this more. The good thing about having a technological solution in place is how it works in the back end can be very, very easily translated across different kind of front-end platforms. And so I suppose for us, it's more about delivering and testing the market first in a more controlled environment, which is, I think, much easier to do through a mobile application than it would be for USSD. But yeah, in short, it's not necessarily that we're not looking into that. That's definitely something that we're well aware of and are actually in research and development for, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I wanted to add, which is, although we're initially going to market from a strategy perspective with a mobile application, which immediately targets the middle to higher income earning village bankers, it is 100% within our pipeline to develop a solution that really engages the lower incomes and can increase financial inclusion in that side. And that may very well be a USSD application or an agency banking solution.
And that's not to say that people in middle to higher income groups don't use USSD codes.
We don't want to trigger anyone.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I hope that answers your question, Tyler. It was a very, very good question. And thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's important that everyone understands from our perspective what that means for us as a company trying to implement this solution.
Thanks, Vitaly.
Thanks, Vitaly. Appreciate that.
Awesome.
Thank you all for these questions. It's been very, very engaging. Very happy to continue, and we like that more people have been coming in. And yeah, I mean, I hope by what we've said, and this is obviously not for us to try and cut this short, but I hope by what we've said, you guys have actually got a really good insight into what it is that we're doing. And yeah, we really enjoyed the engagement in terms of the question, because there's a lot that we could have spoken about that we couldn't necessarily put in the presentation. But it's been good that we've had this time to engage you guys, because like I said, some good questions have been asked.
Yeah, fantastic. And there have been 5 responses, so really happy about that, considering that many people couldn't join. But if those of you who did sign up, if you could share that link with your friends who may also be interested in the UNZABECA community, we would really appreciate that. As mentioned, we really looking forward to working with a group of 20 of you, and we really think this is an exciting opportunity to be a part of this development process. Awesome. I think that about wraps it up.
I think. Thank you so much, Shitty. We do appreciate that. Again, last piece of marketing, or rather trying to customer acquisition for the early access program. We do, yeah, I think on behalf of both of us and the team at COMGROW, very, very excited for the people that have signed up for you guys to join our testing program. For everyone else who's not necessarily joining the program but has joined the webinar, we hope you have enjoyed it. We appreciate you taking out the time on Monday evening. Again, thank you to Vol for listening. Thank you very much to in their absence, Kalopa and Rhoda, who helped facilitate this webinar. I think, even though this is the first time we've done it, we're very, very keen to continue delivering webinars, not necessarily just to an UNZABECA audience, but yeah, like I mentioned before, please do follow us on our socials, keep up to date with what's going on. I'm sure some of you who will join the program will have your faces featured, obviously with your permission. But yeah, find us on Instagram, comgrow.zm, find us on Twitter at comgrow_zm, and on LinkedIn, comgrow Zambia, I believe. But yeah, again, thank you so much, everyone. We hope you have a good evening.
Yeah, fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. It's been a huge pleasure to discuss with you guys and just to chat about this project that obviously we're very passionate about. So thank you so much. And those of you who have signed up, really looking forward to working with you.
Awesome. Cheers, guys.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.